Good morning, Gideon. So this week's quote up, Tzadik Vav and Tzadik Zion. Tzadik Vav, the subject is Duch get the Sakina. That is, the knife's pressure, how the pressure of the knife accelerates the exfoliation and the absorption factor that would normally require heat. Or some other version, we had salt and pickling, all the rest of that. And this is a new type of process of transferring flavor. Duch get the Sakina, the pressure of the knife. Now, the pressure.
Cool.
Sorry?
Cool.
Okay, let's get to that. So the pressure of the knife alone, which we spoke about last week, has two components. One is the shamnunis. There's that little residue that's there, which, according to our halacha l'maisa of last week, if it's properly cleaned, and nowadays they are, that's not really an issue. But let's put that aside for now, because that's not the way the Shulchan Aruch assumes. Shulchan Aruch assumes there is that residue. So that's issue one. The residue remains and comes off with every time it slices something with that pressure. And the other issue is that it enhances or it accelerates the absorption factor. Now, for the first issue of the residue, the heat or the substance of the thing you're cutting is irrelevant. Not mamish. We're going to see at the end of this. We're going to see at the end of this if there is relevance. For example, we're going to have this issue of like cutting cucumbers, where because it is like moist, therefore it has more. It holds on to stuff. It holds on to stuff more. So you have to like scrape it off. Okay, we'll get to that soon, but it does change. But as a rule, the substance of what you're cutting doesn't really make a difference. The pressure is there; it gives off the residue. Now, as far as that's concerned, no other factors are involved. So it's perfectly cold, and it's just a solid slice of bread. Let's say, okay, slice of bread's not a good example; it's hard to wash, but it's just a solid apple. Then all you really need to do is wash the apple off of whatever residue stuck. Right? That's all it is, just a residue issue. So it's not like the spoon, which wouldn't give off the residue. This gives off residue, so you have to wash it off. Now, as soon as you add another factor, then you run to the second problem, which is that the absorption and the exfoliation happens at a higher rate. With heat, that's what we learned last week. With heat of klirishin, that absorption would go all the way through. And with heat of klisheni, we said it was kedei natila, right? What was it? No, sorry. Kedei klipa, you have to remove kedei klipa. I'm not kedei natila. Kedei klipa, it's klisheni. Again, we had that discussion whether the klisheni, the other opinions which say klisheni can absorb, especially if it's a davar gush. But the point is, there's some level of heat plus the knife creates greater absorption. Now in Tzadik Vav, we're going to learn that in addition to heat, there's another component, another kind of heat that can cause the absorption to go at a higher rate. And that is sharp. The food itself is sharp. It has its own internal heat, right? Even though it's not hot on a thermometer, but has a certain, I'm not sure what the scientific term is to describe the difference between the heat of a spice versus the heat of temperature. But we all know that experience. You eat spicy food, it's hot, even if it's not technically hot on the thermometer. So that heat in the sharp food causes absorption at a higher rate.
It also reawakens the taste.
Okay, we're gonna get to that in a second. So there are a few things that are discussed in the background of the Shulchan Aruch amongst the Rishonim that set the stage for the Shulchan Aruch, and that's what I want to share with you today. So I mentioned this, I think, last week, that the Gemara gives 3 cases of sharp food and the transference of flavor. One is a food item called chalitis, which is some sort of root grass or something that's very sharp. Don't know what it is. The other one is tsnoin, which would be radish. And then there is silka, which also itself, the silka itself, is not exactly known what that item is. Right, but we have all kinds of things that are called slack nowadays, and it's not really sure which one it is.
Things that are called?
Slack in Hebrew,
Oh,
samach lamed kuf, or that variation, which the Aramaic is silka.
what does that mean? What does it translate that?
It's like some sort of vegetable. It's even a discussion whether it's actually sharp or it has some other capacity to draw out flavor. But either way, the Gemara identifies 3 different foods that have this capacity to draw out flavor. So in the background of our Shulchan Aruch, you have, first of all, you have the question of, is the Gemara speaking specific about these 3? Because the Gemara doesn't say, and anything that's sharp. The Gemara just mentioned these 3 cases on 2 different occasions. On one occasion, it's chlitis, and the other occasion, it's tznain and silka. But so one could make the case that it's unique to these particular food items. And there are some Rishonim that say that, but they're in the minority. And that chlitis and silka and tznain are just samples of any sharp food. Okay, that's number 1.
Is that 3 levels of sharpness?
So that's a good question. They're trying to discuss that. If the Gemara is making these 3 examples because each bring out a different component. For example, the silka I just mentioned, there are those that say it's not even sharp. It just has this other capacity of drawing out. Maybe acidity. I don't know whatever. I don't know what would be, but some sort of capacity to draw flavor out. So you're right. That's discussed. But the majority of Rishonim seem to be of view. For example, Rashi just comments and says, because of the sharpness in these foods and the pressure, it causes absorption. Without saying anything else, which means anything that's sharp would have it. So it's possible that the Gemara is using these examples according to those who are showing them, just because those are the ones that are available, people that's most known to these people. It would be like today saying onion and lemon, because we use it a lot. So onion and lemons are available. We can use that as an example. So the Gemara happened to use these 3 things, or the Gemara being specific. Yeah, the majority of Rishonim are of the view that it's not specific, but just sample of all other sharp foods. Now, the next question becomes also discussed in the Rishonim, machlokes, and this machlokes is going to actually make its way into the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch is going to mention both of these views. It's going to give us in Sifal Yeshayim, and the machlokes is as follows: when the Gemara, in one of the 3 cases, in the chlitis case, the Gemara refers to the fact. The Gemara actually talks about this chlitis that was cut with a knife of goyim, and it becomes clear from the Gemara that the Gemara is referring to a knife that's even not ben yoimai. Right, it hasn't been used in the last 24 hours. Ain't a ben yoimai, and yet the Gemara still refers to it as a problem. Right, the question is why. So clearly, chlitis, this root, this like root vegetable of sort, has the capacity to reinvigorate the flavor, because in other words, the sharpness doesn't just have the capacity to extract flavor, but actually has the capacity to reinvigorate the negative flavor that was there. Now, again, there's a machlokes. Does that apply to all other sharp foods as well? That every sharp food has a capacity to reawaken the flavor that's absorbed in it? Or is it just specifically the chalitis? Because when it comes to the tznain and the slika or silka, it doesn't seem like the Gemara is specific about whether or not it's ben yomer or not. Right? So the question is it only chalitis that has a capacity to reawaken the negative and make it positive, or also the other things as well? And again, this is a machlokes in the Rishonim, and that machlokes makes it out to the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch is going to bring both views.
And how do we hold?
We're obviously machmer, as you would expect. What is it? The Ramah says something here. Yeah, we're machmir. Anyway, that's machlekes. The two opinions there. But unlike the first case, the machlekes, where it was a question of whether the Gemara means only these three items or anything else, in that case, the overwhelming majority of Rishonim say it means everything. It's just a sample. When it comes to the question of whether ben yomai causes reinvigoration of whether or not the charifus, the sharpness, reinvigorates the ein ben yomai flavor, that's already not. It's more evenly spread, that machlekes. So it actually makes it down to the Shulchan Aruch. The other one is almost there's Ben Yechiel on one side, and everybody else says no. These are just samples in all three, and this belongs to everything. That's question 2 that comes up in the background of the Shulchan Aruch. Question 3 that comes out in the background of the Shulchan Aruch, which is also a relevant question because there's 2 ways to resolve it, and that has practical ramification. The problem is that the knife is not banat. Even if it's not ben yoimai, I'm sorry, even if it is ben yoimai, was used in the last 24 hours, it's still not banat. From, let's use the example of meat, from meat to knife, and then from knife to, let's say, vegetable, radish. And then now that radish can't be eaten with meat, with milk. It's not barnat, right? Is it not? So Rashi provides 2 ways of solving this problem. Answer 1 Rashi gives is, well, that's because there's residue. Not barnat is only when you don't have any mamoshes, you don't have any actual substance. It's only flavor.
Right.
The flavor is weakened because it went through 2 processes. But if you have substance, then there's no then the not barnat's gone. Which would mean, if you follow this view, if you are 100% sure your knife is clean, it's not barnat, and it's totally fine. You can have that radish with cheese.
Right.
If you go with that answer.
In our case, what we use to clean something takes away even the
That's what we're going to go with our psukim and shivas from psukim and shittas, whatever it's called. No, psukim and shivas that we read from Chazar Lamaisa last week. That yes, today we clean our knives. It's totally fine. I imagine showing the dishwasher. It's really good.
Right.
Right. And we don't
dishwashing soap already.
Yeah, they don't have exactly. They don't have the kind of alloys.
We don't use ash and stuff.
We don't use ash anymore to clean our knives. No.
That could leave over something.
Yeah. So let's go with that. So that would be one view. So if you took Rashi's view, if you took that first answer in Rashi, that the reason why it's not barnat is because you have a moshes, you have some shuman karosh, you have a congealed residue. And that's why they're not barnat, because you have actual substance, you have actual mamoshes. Then if you're 100% sure your knife is clean, then you can eat that vegetable, that spicy, that radish with cheese. You could put it onto your pizza. However, the second answer of Rashi is that again, the sharpness has the flavor to reinvigorate it.
It's like it's like it returns.
The sharpness, in the same way we said before, that the sharpness can reinvigorate a negative flavor from over 24 hours ago to make it positive. The sharpness also has the capacity. The point of the sharpness is that it reinvigorates flavor. So it doesn't make a difference if it's 2 times removed or if it's a day old. So according to this answer, right, then the fact that your knife is clean wouldn't be very helpful. Now here,
It's interesting, and not didn't depend only on that, right?
not depend on what?
It didn't only depend on Ben Yomai.
No, not is irrelevant to Ben Yomai, correct?
Not Ben Yomai. So how is he's using an argument to knock that off?
He's saying that sharpness has a capacity to reinvigorate flavor, irrespective of which problem it's facing.
Right.
Whether it's facing the problem of Ein Ben Yomai or whether it's facing the problem of Not Barnat. We had it actually.
Got that. But
right.
Before we learned that Not Barnat didn't depend on whether it was Ben Yomai or
no,
not.
It's irrelevant. They're 2 separate issues.
So if he wants to now disprove that it's not Barnat, he's using an argument to disprove that it's not Barnat, that earlier we understood that it didn't depend on whether it was Ben Yomai or not.
He's not using the Ben Yomai question here. He's using the Charifus point. He's just using the Charifus for both Ben Yomai and for Not Barnat, independent of each other.
Okay.
We actually had the question of Charif when we learned Not Barnat at the time. When we look at
it awakens it becomes Ben Yomai, right?
Like it becomes A Ben Yomai and B becomes it becomes Tam Rishon.
Yes, I got that.
Because both.
I got that. So did that matter earlier when we learned about not?
Yes, it did. When we learned, as I was saying, we learned about not. We learned that if the food you're currently cooking now is sharp, it reinvigorates the flavor. We learned that. right?
right?
And now, and with Ben
and then it was
Yoimai,
not banat.
and it was no, and it was also, even though it was not barnat, it was also the heter of not barnat did not apply to when the last item you're cooking is sharp.
I see.
We had that, yes. We're staying consistent in that
Right,
regard.
right.
I'm just trying to remember about the Ben Yoimai. No, if the food itself was sharp and and now Ben Yoimai, its flavor is gone. It's only if the flavor that's present now is sharp that allows you to reinvigorate the other flavor.
Right, right.
Right. The point is, it's not. We shouldn't imagine it like this. Charifis is like doing two things at once. It's doing one thing, which is reinvigorating the flavor. It's not like it's doing two different things. It's taking a pagam and making it shvach, taking tam kolish, which is not barnat, and making it a tam chazak. It's doing one thing, which is making the flavor currently reinvigorated against whatever happens to be holding it back ordinarily. And the Shulchan Aruch indeed paskins this way. It's not even a machlokes or a machaber. It's a straight up the machaber just doesn't even bring the original opinion, which says that it's that it doesn't even bring the original opinion, which says that if it's totally clean, it's not barnat. He just assumes right away it's because it's sharp, it's not barnat. Just straightforward about that. Meaning even if it's totally clean, yeah. Okay, now the question becomes, see, again, because the Gemara only gives 3 examples, so in every question, there's a machlekes, doesn't apply to everything else. So the question was, does the Ein Ben Yomei factor apply? Sorry, does the disregard of Ein Ben Yomei only apply to chalitas? Does the Bali only apply to chalitas? And the same thing's going to be now with the question of how deeply does it penetrate? Right? So Dukka the Sakin itself, we said, without any sharpness, without any heat, just wash it off. Because it's residue question.
Mhm.
Dukka the Sakin plus some heat, Klirishon, all the way through. Klisheni, okay, it's a Dover Gush, are you following Marshall or not? Or is it Klei Klipa? But here, Dukka the Sakina plus Chadifis, what degree of penetration does it cause in the food that it's cutting? So again, it's machlokes. The Gemara said, from the Gemara's language, it says that the chalitis is aser, and the same thing with respect to the snoin and the silka, where it describes cutting it with a meat knife, and it's also to eat it with milk. It doesn't differentiate how deeply. It doesn't say remove a bit or not. It just says don't eat it with the other thing, assuming that it goes all the way through. Yeah. So here we have 3 shittas. 3 shittas. Shitta 1 is that these are just samples in the Gemara, and therefore everything this applies to all other sharp things, and all other sharp foods plus dukkataskina would penetrate all the way through. So you cut a knife, you cut a lemon with a meat knife, the entire lemon is milk, it's fleshig. That would be Shita 1. Shita 2, that says it's only kedei netila. It's only kedei netila. So so now if you cut that lemon with a meat knife, if you want to have that lemon with milk, you just have to remove a thumb worth of the point of contact. Sheet number 2.
3/4 of an inch.
Yeah. Sheet 3 is, that's even less, it's just kedei klipa, it's just the peel. And it's only fruitus that has the capacity to go all the way through. Okay.
It's funny for a lemon, it's all liquid.
Not mamish all liquid. It's juicy, it's not liquid. Not like you're
No,
going
it's
through a spoon.
juicy.
It's not like you're going
So
through
juicy,
there
I
is
mean-
pressure when you cut the
Right.
you cut the lemon.
Right.
I'm using lemon as an
Juice comes
example
out
because the
and-
Shulchan Aruch is giving lemon
Right.
example. It'd be very relevant in a minute.
What's the shita that says it's only kedei
Natila
natila? How does that? Like
doesn't
you know,
explain. It doesn't explain it in
doesn't
our.
stick in my head easily.
Doesn't explain it. Maybe in this Sefer explains it how that shit there works.
If we were talking about a
Sorry?
radish, I think I understood it better.
Sorry. Okay, so use a say it's a radish. What's it? I'm just using an example. Lemon as an example. Let's see. Does he bring it more? It doesn't give any more explanation. It doesn't give any more deeper explanation.
Okay. So the
Any rate, the
in
short
its entirety,
Yeah,
They-
so we have a machlekes actually between our Mechaber and our Mohir. The Shulchan Aruch is actually Machmer. Sorry, it takes the second view that it's Kedei Netila. The Shulchan Aruch's view is that it's Kedei Netila, and the Ramah's view is that Lechatchila it goes all the way through, but the B'diavad it's only Kedei Netila. Which
So the Fadi and Lean is come back to
So
this.
what's the difference? Well, not necessarily. So what's the vart of what does it mean Lechatchila B'diavad? It means like this. To begin with, you cut the lemon with
Flashing knife.
flashing knife. Lechatchila don't have that lemon with milk.
Right.
Because lechatchila we say penetrates the whole thing.
Right.
If you did, then you only need shishim, not against the whole lemon, but only against kedei netila.
Mhm.
That's the b'diavad. That's pshat b'diavad.
Mhm.
As the Ramah himself is going to explain. So now that you understand that, this question of b'diavad, it's you need shishim only against kedei netila. The Ramah is going to get into if you cut it if it's cut very very thinly, right? Then you're going to need 60 against all of it because it's you can't everything's kedei netila, right? That's going to become a discussion in the Ramah. Another thing that the Ramah is going to bring up, which is very very cool thing, which is cool. I don't know if it's the right word.
When they explain as the what do you call it, the other safer explained. That you chopped up the radish,
Yeah.
so then you have this problem.
Yes, because it's very
You
thin.
chopped up the radish.
You
You
can't
don't chop up.
You can't-
don't chop
so
up
you
the
can't-
lemon,
that's right.
But a radish you do chop up.
Okay, so yeah, radish is a better example, not lemon. Yeah. Now, the Ramah adds a very very interesting thing, which is like this: that when it comes to okay, so in your kitchen is one thing, but now you're going to let's say you're going to a hotel lobby because you never go to a bar, and you get a beer, and they put a slice of lemon in your beer. What's the din?
So if you're using the knife, question is, do you assume the knife is, if you assume the
Oh.
knife is
Assume the worst.
it's worse than the
So
Ben Yom,
you're
like been
gonna
using the
assume
last
the worst.
20.
So the Ramah says not to assume the worst. The Ramah says we assume that they have knives for vegetables.
Yeah,
There's knives for their vegetables. There's a knife at the bar.
Right.
yeah.
That's
Oh,
meant
so
for
this is-
cutting lemon. It's not that knife is not going to the back of the kitchen to cut the thing. And he says even if it is, they don't cut one lemon at a time. They cut many lemons.
Right.
So by the time it gets to
Right.
past 2, 3, 4 first slices, then whatever's left is gone. So even the little bit that maybe has the flavor, which probably doesn't, but maybe it does, is already buckled in the roof.
Right.
Gives you a major heter for going to get.
But a barrel of lemon juice,
Sorry,
a barrel of lemon juice that you got from Goyim. That would be
that's he's
okay.
going to mention that lemonish. He's going to mention lemonish. What is it called? The lemonish. What's the word he uses? I think it's lemonish. Yeah, he's going to use that word lemonish. Yes, so that's a very very important heter that the Ramah is going to discuss in this simon. Right, the same thing he talks about, like you're buying cut radish, like radish where the edges are chopped off from a non-Jew. You don't assume that they used a meat knife to cut that radish, to cut the edge of the radish. There's no reason to assume that. Now, but did you have the ovda? Someone asked me a question about one of the fruit shops here, and whether you could buy a cut up fruit platter.
Mhm.
And I asked Rabbanon if I can rely on this Sunday, what the Ramah says here. Probably have a separate knife. And so he told me they're not only cutting lemons, and lots of other vegetables. And that particular food store, he said he went to check it out. And you can see it's not like they have like a bar here and a separate count.
Yeah.
It's a very small shop. So they have, and he said highly probable that the knife was used for other things as well. So he said, I can't tell you it's also lagamri,
Right.
but
that still looks better.
you're
than
saying
Goyim.
not to. But as far, okay, he didn't tell me this, but I'm saying as far as like the Shulchan Aruch is concerned, taking a lemon from a bar is not a problem.
What about like a hotel? You know, from hotels they have like a breakfast and they have cut up fruit. on like, because it's cold plate, would you, that type of?
Pashtus, it's okay. We're learning here. Pashtus,
You're
okay.
assuming they're not gonna like use, they have separate like knives, they have.
Unless they also cut up cheese right there and they also
Yeah,
cut
okay.
cheese with the knife, then
Yeah,
maybe you have a
that's
problem.
true.
Right?
Okay.
It's cheese mamish thing right there.
Good. Yeah.
But if they're cutting up a lot of vegetable, a lot of fruits,
Yeah.
you know, it's a fruit salad. If there's a fruit salad, hard to imagine a fruit salad would be awesome. Right? Because when there's fruit salad, they're cutting up multiple fruits. So even if they use the same knife, huh? Even though, but based on what Rabbi told me, is not to rely on lechatchila, especially if you can see that it's not, especially if you can see, primarily because you can see, and it's not like they have designated. But if you
Yeah.
go to a regular bar, even if they're cooking in the back of the kitchen, the bar has their own. It's clear the bar has its own utensils for their mixtures for their things, and that knife isn't cutting anything but the lemon, and maybe I don't know, strawberries. I don't know what they cut with there. Okay. Finally, okay, this is the majority of Tadek Vav. You're gonna get into Charain and you're gonna get into like grinding spices, and it also has the same kind of factor, despite the sharpness that reinvigorates labor. He's gonna get into that as well. Oh, here, Sivdalad, me lemonish. Right. So you can enjoy that lemonade. It's cut with its own unique utensil. Okay, finally, in Sifhei, he's going to talk about how cucumbers, because they're like because they're wet, they have that like sticky factor. When you cut it, it's not enough to wash it off. You have to actually scrape it off, even though it's cold and it's not sharp. That texture has that ability to have things stick to it, and therefore washing it off is not enough. You have to scrape it off.
But then it's a question if it's ben yomer or not, no?
Sorry.
Then it's a question if
Yeah.
the knife is ben yomer or not.
Well, no, it's a residue question.
It's
It's a question if it's clean or not. It's a residue question.
we have to distinguish that.
Yes, it's distinguished.
Nowadays,
Yeah,
residue
it's less a factor.
wouldn't be a real
Yeah.
factor.
Yeah, it's a residue question. Now, and then there's another thing which is lefus, which it's kind of weak. Sorry,
Here's the turnip carrot.
turnip. Yeah, lefus is turnip. It has this ability because of its extra sweetness. It has this ability to like hold off the flavor, and therefore, if you cut with the turnip, and then afterwards cut a sharp thing, then the sharp thing would only require rinsing because the turnip counteracts the sharpness. And then I'm always going to point out that it only
And then
works.
you're assuming that it's clean and there's no residue.
Yes, they were assuming no residue. Yeah, see, that's right. You have to like go back and forth each time.
Right, because if there would be residues.
Right, because the
there wouldn't
Shulchan,
be some.
the reason why the Shulchan Aruch doesn't do that is because the Shulchan Aruch assumes they all have residue.
Right.
So you have to note each
So-
time which issue is the
Right,
problem here.
right.
And here it seems like it's an absorption problem, not a residue issue problem.
Right.
And therefore the turnip has this capacity to stymie the flavor for some reason.
Mhm.
And it's a discussion. We're going to get to that next.
And
We get to
then lemon
Alam
won't reawaken.
say.
And then the sharp thing that you.
That's
cut
right. But then I'm always going to point
won't
out.
reawaken.
Yeah, then I'm always going to point out that you can't do too many, because once you do enough, then you've taken off the turnip thing, and now the sharp is back.
Right, sharp is
So
back.
you have to go back and forth between turnip and your radish. Anyway, by Chazar Lamaisa, we're gonna get into more details regarding that. Okay, that's as far as Tzaddik Vav goes. Tzaddik Zion is pretty straightforward. So here's actually where we have a machlekes in the Gemara, where the machlekes lands us with two kulas. Usually the machlekes ends up with two chumras. Here machlekes is going to give us two kulas. Namely, the Gemara says, the Brisa tells us, one should not make dough with milk because the person eating it won't know that there's milk in the mixture, and therefore we'll end up eating it with meat. And therefore you shouldn't even eat it alone. It's like Zeta. Don't even eat that milk bread alone, because we're afraid it's going to be mixed up with to be eaten with meat. So now the Gemara says, if you make the Gemara qualifies and says, because the question is you might end up eating it with the wrong type, you made it with milk, you don't know. If it's recognizable, the Gemara's words are ke'ein tura. If it's recognizable, then sorry, not ke'ein tura, whatever that means. If it's ke'ein tura, then we're not concerned you're going to eat it with meat. Well, what's ke'ein tura? So we have Rashi who says you're only making a little bit, so you're going to be eating it right now with your milk meal, and we're not concerned. You're going to be finished by the time you're done. It's not lying around.
No left.
So the concern is you have your bread in the freezer, not freezer, but you have your bread on the counter,
Right.
and you eat it as you always do with your bread, with your meat, and you don't know that there's milk in there. But if it's small enough that you can eat it now, it's fine. Rambam, Rashba, Rif say Ke'ein Torah means it's a different shape. And the shape lets you know that it's milk.
It's
Recognizable. And we take both kulas. Usually we take both chumras, right? Today we take both kulas. The point being that as long as you know that this, I'm not going to end up eating with the wrong type, it's okay. Because of that, the Rama goes so far as to say that it can be the reverse also. If you're cooked, when it comes to Shavuos, you can make your bread with milk in it, because you're going to be eating it only at a milk meal. And even though it's a lot, technically, but it's still considered ke'ein tura because the point is going to be eaten by the time the meal is done.
Unless you're a Lubavitcher.
What?
Then you can eat meat right afterwards.
Everybody does.
Oh, everybody does?
Yeah, it's a dinner. Then you have to eat meat afterwards.
No,
Some people-
only has milk. You sure?
I don't know. Maybe they're more modern.
It's Minakaba.
What?
I
What?
mean, some people have, but it's a lot to eat milk and then meat in the same meal. It's
Not in the same meal. So I'll tell you what we did growing up. It was we had a milk lunch,
yeah.
and then before an hour and a half later, whatever, after
Right.
before we go back to mincha, you sit down, have a little bit of have some flesh. Yeah, definitely. Any rate, that's what Amos says, and he says the other way around as well, because the same thing applies the other way around. If you not to make bread in a pan or something, or an oven that was like your non-stick that you put onto the surface of your oven was fat from a cow, but you make your bread
Right.
fleishik, and now you have the same problem in the reverse that you might eat it with milk. So says the Ramah, if you're making it for Shabbos, then that's fine, because you're gonna be eating it. Your Friday night meal, it's gonna be done. Your Friday night meal, it's over. And the Ramah adds, that's a different shape. Your Shabbos bread's a different shape. I'm assuming he's referring to bread challah, which is very much a European thing. The braided challah thing is a European so it's an Ashkenaz thing. So if you know that your Shabbos challah is always made with meat, then you're never going to eat it with your milchik. Okay, that is as far as Tzedek Zion goes. Then there's going to be two more dinim that come out in Tzedek Zion. One is how to kosherize an oven that was used with meat, where you smeared the surface with your non-stick meat fat. How do you kosherize it if you want to use it for milk? And that's basically what we do with self-clean. It just says to put hot coals on the surface until it becomes white. And then the third din is going to be.
But factually, all that's needed is more heat than what made it fleshy, right?
You have to go to the highest version of what that thing can do.
The highest
We're
version
not
of
learning the
that-
halachas
that
of kashrus
device.
of hechsher right now, hechsher kelim. But b'chlal, the rule of hechsher kelim is to go to the hottest version of what that thing can do. Right. So even though you don't necessarily always have your pot to a rolling boil, but you have to take your pot to a rolling boil if you want to kosherize it.
And you can't change fleshik to milchik. You could do it one time, right?
We don't do it wantonly because of the confusion.
Right.
But in
We
theory,
don't do
one
it
can.
back and forth.
We don't only because of
Well, you could do it back and
in
forth.
theory you can.
Isn't he specifying particularly that you're doing it one time because you're changing it over?
It's not here in the Shulchan Aruch. It doesn't say that, but it just says what you should do. If you did go ahead and do how you should kosherize it. If you did go ahead and smear your oven with with fat from cow. Doesn't say any limitations, but we learned this once before. Just we don't do that because it's too confusing. But in theory, one can. We don't because it's just you want to be consistent. Same thing with like we had
So
it with,
once upon a time, was it done then? Was it ever done or no?
I assume it was done for certainly before Shavuos. I don't think people had two ovens back in the old day. We didn't have two ovens like
And
we have.
then done back
And then back, yeah.
and then put back to
Presumably-
Fleshik after
presumably.
kosher again.
Presumably, yeah. People did much more kosherizing than us b'chlal. For Pesach, they
Right.
kosherize everything, didn't have multiple ovens and cabinets to keep
Right.
all the stuff. We do.
Sure.
Exactly. So you talked about that kosherizing, and then the final halacha here in the Shulchan Aruch is going to be very practical stuff, which came up before, which is when you're cooking bread in the same oven that's also cooking meat at the same time, whether or not we assume the flavor transfers from the meat to the bread. And how do we prevent that from happening? If it's covered, if it's not covered, if you're making a like a meat knish or a cheese knish, does it also transfer that flavor to anything else that's in the oven?
Findash, that's the Findash?
Yes.
Findash?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. That's a pladin and pashtida. Not Finnish. We had that before.
Yeah, yeah.
Anadish we had last week, which is also some sort of meat thing, but that meat was exposed. Meat is concealed inside of a
Dough.
dough, and it seems like as from their mother, they used to have they would puncture a hole in it to let the steam out so it didn't get soggy on the inside.
Mhm.
And if you still have that hole, then you have a problem because the
With the
steam goes
steam.
through. But if you close that hole up, then it becomes less of a problem, and that's going to be discussed as well in Sif Gimel, which is pretty practical stuff when you're making barekes, and whether or not it transfers the flavor, it becomes muchik or not muchik. We once touched upon it before. That's going to come up again as well. So that is our quote this week.
What about the mortar and pestle?
Mortar and pestle for sharp. It's going to have the
Mortar
same.
pestle says that it's used it for parav, and then one time you used it for fleshik, now you can't use it for milk and for fleshik. What's that story?
You can
It's
you
also good.
we mentioned it. He mentions here.
Mortar and pestle.
He doesn't mention mortar and pestle. All he mentions here is that you cannot eat those spices that were done in a fleshik mortar and pestle with milk. I'm not sure which din you're referring to.
I'm referring to mortar and pestle that.
Here just talks about the fact that it's sharp and therefore those spices cannot be eaten with milk because it absorb the flavor from the mortar and pestle.
Taz or shach.
Perhaps, I don't know.
I remember, I don't have the thing. Do you have the other?
That if it was used for part of it, and then it became in this week's quota.
Yeah,
Let's see.
something about it can't be used for either afterwards.
Yeah. The Taz raises a question from a previous din that we learned.
Okay, with
In
the
Kuf
pot,
Gimel.
so- Yeah.
Yeah, they'll ask about the Ben Yomeh factor that we already discussed. I don't see any in here, but we spoke about maybe referring to I'm not sure which din you're referring to, but we spoke about once that if you're using a powder thing and you boiled it with a not milchik or meat, you shouldn't use it for either. You should kosherize it because we want you to choose one and designate it.
Right,
Right, we spoke about that, even though it's not mixture.
right.
which
But I
we-
remember, because I read it over yesterday and not in the Shulchan Aruch itself, but.
In the side, okay, show me what does it say
The
there?
explanations. And I found it confusing. So we'll talk about it next time. I meant to bring it and I thought it was gonna
Okay.
be late.
With Hashem's help, we're going to do our Chazar Lamaisa on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. I'm out of town.
Yeah.
We're gonna do Tuesday nights. It's not hard simonim, and most of the principles already know. I just explained them now. It's not like a lot, so I hope to be able to get through them. But there's gonna be a lot of practical stuff when we do the Chazar Lamaisa, so we might have to have a second shir. And if that's the case, we'll do that on Friday morning because I'm not here Wednesday, Thursday. So Tuesday night, and if we don't finish it, we'll continue on Friday morning with Hashem's help. Okay. Have a wonderful day, Eden. A good Tavach.